Not call it midnight now,
I call, let's see, we have to have a motion to go back into an open meeting. I have,
Move that we re-enter an open meeting of the Leeds Town Council Wednesday, April 24th.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Pledge allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, invocation, bow your heads. Dear Lord, we just thank you for this day and all the blessings within it. We ask you to guide our thoughts, words, and deeds, and to help us to focus on the important issues that would be in your will and benefit this town. In Christ's name, amen. Okay, any abstentions or conflicts?
I have none.
No. Okay. Could I have a motion, or do we have any discussion about the consent agenda, tonight's agenda?
I move that we accept the consent agenda consisting of tonight's agenda and the meeting minutes of April 10th, 2013.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, announcements. I talked to the project manager for UDOT, who will be dealing with I-15. He plans on starting in July, and they don't have money to do the whole thing, of course, right now. So they're going to concentrate on putting a third climbing lane on the east side, on the northbound lane. And it will not come further over towards town, it will go into the median. So that would impact any properties bordering UDOT less. The entry lane, the southbound entry lane is within their funding at this point to lengthen that. The northbound exit lane, the one that's more complex, is not. So that may not happen. So that's where we stand on that. I wanted to make an announcement that we will have Tuesdays at Town Hall this next Tuesday, the 30th, and that will be Roger Kruger, and he will be talking about gardening ideas in Leeds, and it'll be a question and answer session. The one that we had a week ago, we had 10 people show up, and everybody seemed to benefit from the opportunity to look at the Utah Advanced Healthcare Directives. If anybody else has any suggestions, please let us know of other ideas that we might be doing for Tuesdays at Town Hall.
Is that at 7 p.m.?
That's at 7 p.m. Oh, the dumpsters. We did have the dumpster days, and they were not where I thought they would be. They were over on Babylon Mill Road, which apparently is where they have been more recently. I have booked the dates of July 26th, 27th for the next dumpster days, and then following that, the best I could do was September 20th and 21st. If somebody backs out of a November date, they will give it to us. So that's what's coming up there. All right. Any other announcements? Okay. No public hearings. So, for those of you who have not yet met Christy Barker, she is our new deputy clerk. And Bob, are you going to administer the oath of office?
I'd like to swear her in.
Great.
Christy?
All right.
You repeat after me. I, Christy Barker,
I, Christy Barker,
having been appointed to the office of
having been appointed to the office of
Deputy Clerk Recorder
Deputy Clerk Recorder,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support,
that I will support,
obey, and defend
obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Utah,
the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and ordinances and resolutions
and ordinances and resolutions
of the town of Leeds,
of the town of Leeds,
Utah,
Utah,
and that I will discharge
and that I will discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Thank you.
Nice to have you on board, Christie. Thanks. Okay, we have for item B, approval of the contract for hiring Gary Coleman as our second counsel on the Grapevine Wash mediation, which is happening May 10th.
Have there been any modifications to this since the last draft I saw? No?
No.
Then I move that we go ahead and approve that contract.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Mayor, point of question.
yes.
We may need to do a roll voice count because it's a contract,
Okay,
just for caution.
so, thank you. So it has been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All right, a roll call. Would you lead off, Joe?
Joe Allen, aye.
Nate Blake, aye.
Wayne Peterson, aye.
Frank Boyko, aye.
Angela Moore, aye.
Thank you, Mayor. Just, I may be wrong in that, but I think
That's
Safe.
be safe to run there.
right. Better be safe. Okay. All right, discussion and possible acceptance of the new town computer website. Does anybody have any questions about it? Did everybody have a chance to look at it and see what you thought? Yes.
This $500 annual fee,
Mhm.
will Karen be the one actually putting things on the website? So every week when we have a meeting, she'll be the one adding the meeting minutes, the agenda, those types of things?
Right,
That's what we're getting for the annual fee?
yes. And she currently does this for the town of Bergen, and she said if they haven't called her by the end of the week to add something that week, she calls them just to make sure that, so she does do some follow-up on that.
That's good to hear.
So every day we could have it updated.
Reading through the proposal, it also includes the cost of hosting it and the domain name as well. And 3 free email accounts, additional ones would be $12 per email account
For a year.
per year.
No, who owns the domain?
The town does.
So, can you explain what the $38 is for then?
That's the internet hosting charge on an annual basis.
It says it says the annual fee includes those bullet points, which is the $38 for the cost of the hosting and the domain name. The 3 email accounts, account privacy feature, and 100 hours of website maintenance, updates, formatting, at an hourly rate of $15. So she's just delineating what is involved, what is included.
So I just want to make sure again that it's not saying that we're getting the name to anybody, because I know businesses and organizations and schools have got in situations where they have somebody do it and then they have ownership of it and then they've got to go buy it or get another one, so we absolutely own the name.
Yes, we do. Well, as long as anybody owns a name. You have to keep renewing
Right,
it
yeah.
each,
Yeah,
each term.
okay.
And it's very expensive because as soon as you let go of it, somebody's gonna snatch it, snatch it up.
But we're making the payment for the name.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I want to clarify. So send a payment, we've already paid for the name, is what I guess my question is.
We haven't actually handed over the money, but yes, it has been paid in our name. The town owns it. It's registered under the town.
All right, because that's where businesses and schools got in trouble, because they pay it to someone else and they pay it, and later on it shows that the ownership was actually paid by the services and not by the individual.
Okay. Would you like to table it until the next meeting? And
No,
we
no,
will
I don't
check
have
that?
a problem with it, I just want to make sure that we're the ones making the payment, that we're not paying an agent, because they actually own it technically if they make the payment and not us.
We make the payment directly to the registration, whether it's GoDaddy or whoever it is.
Because then if you want to drop service with someone, then they go, well, I'm maintaining it, I own the service, so you have to get another name. So that's happened to so many, I mean, I hear that daily on the campus, from students that get into the business and they have someone do something, then they pay somebody and they pay for the name.
So we'll make sure that check's written directly out to the
So,
provider.
That's why I asked about $38. I don't know what it costs for a name anymore. Does anybody know?
Mine,
it varies.
my host, mine expired because my gal left town, and I didn't know it expired. I went to buy it back, and it was 13 grand. I waited a year, and I picked it up for $12 a year, and
So you
I
see-
paid for 4 years worth, so,
You see why I'm bringing
Yeah.
this up?
Yeah.
yeah.
So we can either wait to vote on this after we've got it.
I've got a question, and I wish he was here, because
Yes.
these are really technical issues, I guess, and she would know. Do we carry our old names forward, our old email, or, you know, we're still paying for email when it was BB and beyond?
No, we're not paying for it. We're just getting it.
Yeah, I guess they do that for a while.
Yeah.
So do we take new email names here under this arrangement?
Since we currently have these till October, we can continue to use the email accounts that we do already have established. Or we can switch over immediately. And like, I'm thinking that any councilman at this point who want to establish should go ahead and do it under the new,
Yeah.
so that we don't have a conflict.
Yes. This proposal is wonderful, and I like the idea in theory and concept. I think it would be to the benefit of the town and to Karen if there was an actual contract that was created. Has she presented anything like that, or is this all we have in this proposal?
You know, that's probably a very good idea. So, why don't we draw one up and do it in our next meeting?
Okay, we'll table this, and we'll make sure it references that we pay, that the town of Leeds will directly pay the domain.
Yeah, the town will own the domain.
Yeah. Good point, Joe.
Very good. Okay. D, discussion and possible transfer to the planning commission for further study and recommendation of land use ordinance, chapter 17. That's the one on commercial properties, chapter 17. Specifically addressing regarding auto impound lots, and that they be concealed from public view, so that we don't have visible trash heaps from our main street And then in addition, there, some clarification on the language under the special provisions. There's two special provisions there that, I've done a lot of struggling with, and I think the language could be cleaned up. Can you, could you comment on any of that, or, Bob?
Well, yeah, there's, I guess the first little bit of a gray area right now is that when you look under conditional uses in the commercial, chapter 17, commercial zone, it says automobile repair and storage, including paint, body and fender, brake, muffler, transmission work, provided it all be conducted within an enclosed building. The storage is only on a temporary basis, not to exceed 6 months. So the first question that's kind of raised is referring to automobile repair and storage, including paint, body, fender, etc. Does that include an impound yard? And, you know, planning commission talked about it, and I said, yeah, because it says storage, then that was implied that that would be an impound yard. So if that's, you know, if that's the accepted decision that an impound yard falls within that use, I guess it could because it is automobile storage. The two special conditions are that it be, storage be surrounded, enclosed within a solid or a site obscuring fence or wall of not less than 6 feet in height. It could be more than 6 feet in height if a conditional use is approved. So the use itself is a conditional use. So you may want to, you know, it may be important to have a wall taller than 6 feet, depending on where it sits relative to adjacent properties. You know, so maybe we'll have to look, and you may want, if in fact the location they're talking about is north of town, apparently it's down in a little bit of a ravine. It's gonna be hard to obscure it, I assume. I don't know exactly where the site is.
It's pretty well obscured.
Is it? Okay.
at this
Anyway,
point.
it says at least 6 feet, and it could, the wall, the privacy wall could be taller, subject to the approval of this conditional use permit. And then further, the next paragraph says, no junk debris, abandoned or dismantled automobile or automobile parts or any other items that appear to be abandoned or similar material shall be stored or allowed to remain on any lot in this district, i.e. no commercial zone.
Could I speak to this?
Yes.
I don't think the town, and I don't want this to be taken the wrong way, I don't think the town is mature enough to take on something like this. We have people in this community who have junk and stuff, they're in violation of code, we're not even enforcing it, we have other businesses that we're not enforcing. And I think to go in to say we're gonna have somebody bring a lot and put it in, and we haven't kept Main Street or other parts of the town to force with their compliance, why would we be opening the door to say, okay, we're gonna let you come in and put a fence around something when we don't even enforce other people that are supposed to have fences around and covered up. I just think that we're not ready for that yet until we decide how we're gonna enforce our ordinances.
I believe though, as our ordinance currently reads, it's an acceptable use, so I don't know that it's a time to suggest that they couldn't do it. I think it would be opening us up to a
No, I mean,
challenge.
I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that on 17.32, the storage is referring to that particular repair, it's not referring to a storage of a vehicle. Those are,
It sounds to me like that was a singular. Singular, not.
it should be broken into another paragraph.
Yeah, I mean, because it said paint, fenders, et cetera, to be done in an enclosed area and not to be stored outside for longer than 6 months. And to me, it sounded like it was a singular vehicle being worked on, not a group of vehicles. Is that how you?
Well, yeah, exactly. It's not meaning that you can just store vehicles there for a long period. It'd be like if you have a vehicle come in that's been damaged, you're gonna bring it into the shop to get it fixed, and it's not gonna be there longer than 6 months, and it's gonna be off the property.
Yeah.
So I think the applicant that came said, he was told about this 6 months, and he said, well, I can deal with that. They'll be in for a short time, and then they're out of there. But if he still, you know, wants to pursue the impound yard.
That's under a special condition permit.
conditional use.
Right, but it's not under this one.
I don't understand exactly what you mean by that.
This is about auto repair and storage. It's not about storing vehicles that have been towed in. It's a different operation.
So you're saying that an impound yard is actually a different use?
That's-
Well, that's kind of, that's issue number one, I think. That's issue number one that needs to be resolved. Is an impound yard the same as what's listed here in the code? Wayne kind of said it probably is the same. Is that what you're saying?
I will confess to having been a math major, but when I try to apply the English language to that clause, it doesn't talk about engine repair. So I don't read it as trying to be all-inclusive. That if somebody wanted to do an engine repair or an oil change, if you were to interpret it that only applied with regard to paint, body, and fender, brake, muffler, transmission, it seems to limit some of the most basic activities that would be there in automobile repair. I don't know the intent of what the people who wrote this are. Did you want to recognize somebody?
Not quite yet. One of the things that I was thinking is that, well, this maybe wasn't written 20 years ago, that things do change. And it would seem to me that since we have had history of an auto impound lot that was recognized by the State Highway Department, that, and it's not in here, that the whole thing could be revised and an auto impound lot could be added over and above what's already here. But taking into consideration some of the language in the special provisions that could apply to having it concealed so that we don't have a junkyard. And just because Mr. Pilkey has been very cooperative and has removed and gotten most of the vehicles into an out-of-sight enclosed or fenced area at this point, doesn't mean that somebody else might not take it over, buy it from you, and not take care of it the way that he's doing right now, or that he might not take care of it a year from
So
now.
are you suggesting maybe the planning commission come back with some standards that would protect the town? Is that basically, I mean,
The-
standards for development for an impound yard,
Yes.
concealment,
To
whatever?
bring it to an allowable use with standards.
Okay.
See,
Thank you.
See, this is where we get into trouble. And that is that instead of having conditional use and saying what we allow, we have people come in and want to tweak some piece of property that's not best fitted for what it is, and we deal with that. I mean, we haven't set an industrial park, we haven't set a business zone like some of the other towns have, and we'll say this is where you can do this type of business. So we haven't done that. And so that's kind of the concern that I have, is that we haven't designated, this is Main Street going through here. Personally myself, and if I don't know the individual, I don't have any opposition to that person, or about having a place where you're gonna impound cars. I have a concern that this is Main Street, this is where people come through and they see the town and it affects the property value. And I'm concerned about how the town looks and property value. So if everybody wants their property to go down another 20,000 because we don't care where we put anything, then, you know, and I'm just voicing my opinion, and I know it does affect us. And Joe can tell you right now that if we want our property value to go down, let's just put it right in the main place that everybody comes through, and everybody's home's gonna go down because we're putting businesses in the wrong place. So we need to have a zone where we're gonna put stuff, and that it's gonna look appropriate. I'm not trying to run business off, I'm just saying, then we're gonna put some big fence up and everybody's gonna drive by, and then how, is it gonna be brick, what color is it? It's gonna have little pieces of plastic going through it, like we had up here, but they're all out of it.
The allergens.
So, I mean, we haven't enforced anything, so, I mean, we haven't been good at that.
Right.
Now, in one meeting, we talked about preserving the integrity of town, especially Main Street, and talked about making us a tree city. And on the other hand, we want to put on the north end of town, a big cinder block wall with an impound yard in it.
Yeah, and then we have everybody complaining about Grapevine, and it's way out there, and they don't want the impact of that, but now we're gonna just put something right out in front of everybody. So I'm a little confused.
And the old impound lot used to be behind, it was in a fenced-in area behind an auto body shop that was actually enclosed with the paint bay and everything else in it.
So one option, obviously, besides the enclosure, is the maximum size. That you don't want an impound yard larger than, you know, a quarter acre, half acre, or something. And you don't want a 5 acre red Blake,
Right.
the boat stays south of
Yeah,
St.
you can
George.
have red blades and,
Yeah, if you're gonna have it, it sounds like they need to be very small, similar to what was across the street for a while or something like. Is that what I guess that's where you're coming
To-
from?
What I was looking for was the planning commission to address it, start looking at it, and come up with recommendations
Standards, right?
and standards. Now, Peter, you had your hand up.
We've already looked at this and we've already given our recommendation. We disagree with the council. If you want me to get up, I can read why we disagree.
Okay.
My name's Pete Origel. I'm a member of the planning commission. Frank, first of all, what you're saying is correct. Is it the best use of that property? No, it's not. But it is commercial property. That's the first thing you have to look at.
Right.
Under the commercial property, the permitted uses, we looked at all these, and we found it to be under the 17.2.3, automobiles, new and used. And the reason being is they're gonna impound cars, and they're going to hold them for 30 days, and then they're gonna take possession of the cars if people don't come and pay their loan fees, their penalties, and if they don't do it after 30 days, the cars will be taken out and they will be sold. There's not gonna be any repairs done to the cars on the site. So 17.2.2 is out of the question. So we found that 17.2.3 was the use. And then under, you were looking at 17.3.2, automobile repair and storage, including paint, body, but that's not what he's doing. He's not doing any of that, and it has to be enclosed in a building. Now, if you go to special provisions, which is 17.10.1. Now, this is a mistake I made, because when I read this, I understood it being they had to put a fence up. But let me read it to you, because it was read to me. All materials and merchandise.
Yeah, it's set.
Is that the right one? Yeah, that's the right one.
10.1.
Yeah. Yeah, all materials and merchandise except vehicles in running order. Okay, that's the critical phrase there. Shall be stored in an enclosed building or within that fence. So the cars that he's taking and impounding are in running order, and he's not repairing them. So how can the council tell this gentleman who's got commercial property that he can't have a use on his commercial property that it says right here in the ordinance? And that's the way the planning commission looked at it. And I highly recommend that you review your thoughts. I went around with this with my wife, and she said, massage parlor, fingernail thing, that would be the best, a spa. That would be the best for that property. But who are we to tell an applicant who meets what we feel meets this standard that he can't do it? And so I completely disagree with your frame of thought. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer it. And And the planning commission, as a matter of fact, the planning commission as a whole, the three members that have been attending the meetings all agreed with this finding. And I didn't find all this information. You know, the three of us found this to be what I'm stating.
Can I ask one question? I haven't been by there since it was first brought up a month and a half ago, when everything was parked out front. Now, has he moved everything out back?
We-
So you're telling me now?
He came before the planning commission a couple of meetings ago, and we asked him to move it all back, and he, you know, because we were getting complaints. And I think I heard Angie say to someone that there was gonna be a cease and desist order. And I told Angie, I said, you know, all you gotta do is talk to the guy. I mean, this is a small town, and just tell him what the issues are. I mean, he's jumped the gun a little bit, and, you know, and I don't have, you know, and he shouldn't have. He shouldn't have. But he's been compliant, he's tried, you know, he moved the majority of the cars, there were a few left as of last planning commission last Wednesday. We asked him to move the rest of them, and, you know, to put them in the back, and that's where his plan is to keep them in the back. And that's supposed to be,
Are they walled in at this point?
They're fenced in and you can't see them from the road.
they are.
He's got a fence.
Okay, well, but it says here he doesn't have to have a fence, because they're all in running condition, and he's not doing any repairs.
Did you guys have a suggestion on how many vehicles he could have at one time? I mean, I guess.
There's nothing here that says there's any restrictions on that at all.
And that's
So
what,
we can only recommend from the ordinance of this town.
So if he's got everything in that fenced in area in the back and it's cleaned up, because it did look pretty rough when I went by.
it's down to 2 or 3 vehicles at this point.
Is there 2 or 3 still up front?
There's at least 2. I didn't go and look real closely, but I could see 2 from Silver Ridge Road.
I mean, we spoke to him and asked him to move those out.
Well, there were 5, like, a few days ago. Now it's reduced down.
So hopefully he's in the,
Any other questions of Peter at this point? Okay, thank you.
Peter.
Okay.
So coming back to this.
I'll be back.
On what one?
Well done. I've got a question
Okay.
about this. At what point can you take a piece of bare ground and start doing business on it? Can you put up a tent and open up an office, for example? Are there things in our ordinances that call for a certain level of improvement before, I mean, does the lot need to be paved? Does it need to have anything on it? Or
It
can-
doesn't need to be.
It does have to be paid.
Yeah.
Because when we were gonna have the selling the stuff out of the thing on the weekends, so it had to be a paved lot. And that was the concern, they couldn't afford to pay for the paved. So you don't have to have a paved lot for the cars.
In what section of our ordinances does it describe that?
Probably in the parking, I'm not sure, but I suspect that would be in the parking
In
section.
parking, okay, which one?
17.9 says
16 or-
compliance with parking requirements is, in chapter 6 is mandatory. All lighting must comply with the lead lighting ordinance.
So it sounds to me, based on what Peter's telling me, because I missed last planning commission meeting, but it sounds like what we need is the standard for what constitutes a car dealership lot, real use sales lot, which this gentleman, you know, feels he could fall under, and what would be a impound yard. Obviously, for a car dealership, you also have to have a state license. The state has some criteria.
Mhm.
So they'd have to meet that. You have to have a state license, and you gotta do certain things. If it's an impound yard, then, you know, I guess then there ought to be some standards for that. Now, I was just quickly looking through it, I don't think there's a landscape requirement, and you may wanna have in your commercial district a landscaping requirement.
I believe that there is somewhere else.
Is there in a different section? I just haven't found it, but
Right.
But I think landscaping's important. You need hard surfacing for at least a portion of it.
As a matter of fact, I can say definitely because R&R, who owns the property next door, said that he had was still not in compliance with his landscaping.
Okay.
And so, he knew that was aware, he was aware that that was a consideration. So what it was, bringing this, forward is that while this man says that he wants to do, used auto sales, that's not where he's starting off right now. He's starting off with an impound lot. And if the vehicle comes in and becomes his possession after 30 days and needs repair, he will do those repairs. And I don't know if he plans on doing on site or somewhere else. I don't remember him actually stating
He didn't say he's gonna do repairs. He
that. That's
told
what he
us
told, that's what he
told
told
me he was
me.
not gonna do repair. He told, the planning commission he was not gonna do repairs.
Well, that was his hobby, he said, and that's one of the reasons why he did this. So, anyway, it would be nice if there were, even if he does that, maybe that's 6 months down the road, maybe it's a year, maybe it never happens. But if he does do that, in the meantime, this still really doesn't cover the impound part of it, and that's what I would like to see included within here, and give it, criteria. You know, most of these are, they just list something, but list it and specifically say. So that's what I'm looking for.
The parking ordinance, I pulled it up.
Okay.
Talks about surfacing. It says each off-street parking lot shall be surfaced with an asphalt-type substance or Portland cement or other binder pavement to provide a dustless surface. Parking areas shall be so graded as to dispose of all surface water. If such water is to be carried to adjacent streets, it shall be piped under sidewalks. So
That sounds like driveways.
no, it's each off-street parking lot shall be surfaced with an asphalt-type substance.
Because we've had this come up before, and businesses so well can't afford to put the asphalt over the pavement, and that's just the way it is.
Can I put a wrench in things here? The problem with doing that is if we require him to put asphalt in, and he's in compliance with everything else, he's gonna move the cars, because the expenditure of getting asphalt back to the back of the cars our vehicles are now, he's gonna move, to meet the requirements, he's gonna move vehicles back to the front, right on Main Street. Just something to think about.
While they're doing paving.
Well, he probably would block wall and fence in right off Main Street and pave right there.
We have the special provision says that the fence has to be 50 feet, not closer than 50 feet to any street.
Okay, well,
So
I
there-
understand what you're saying.
there's
An option
issues.
on that would be the customer, the employee parking and the customer parking area to be hard surface. Area that was strictly used for car storage could be maybe, like a road base or something. But, I mean, those are options, obviously, but just others. But I could think, I understand what you're asking for, so take that to the planning commission.
Okay. Let's see.
You on the same page as that, Peter? Appreciate it.
But it doesn't say you can't put the cars between the fence and the road. It says the fence has to be back.
That's my concern, is if we require pavement, then I'm afraid the cars be moved back to the front of Main Street, because the cost incurred to get that pavement all the way back there. And I probably need to take some more time to go look at the property closer.
If I could just offer up, as the planning commission looks at this, that I think it would be best to try to, 17.3.2 seems to me to be a bit ambiguous, but also, we're discussing an auto impound lot. We have used in new car lots. I know I've personally used in shipping a car out here, a lot that it was just stored in while it was awaiting pickup and then dropped off at when it was awaiting delivery. And it just makes sense to me, if we're gonna have ordinances, that they not be so specific as to cause us to have to revisit them, every time somebody comes forward with another use, but rather try to address things in a more general sense where possible, so that it can be applied evenly and to any situation that might come up until technology and circumstances cause us to need something new and different yet again.
So, let's see, what we're calling for is to send this to Planning Commission to address these issues. Is this something that's acceptable to everybody
Yeah.
at this point? No? Okay. You don't want Planning Commission to look at, seeing if we can come up with something that's an acceptable change of our ordinance 17, chapter 17.
No, I'd like to look at this more and look at all the ordinance and talk about this before.
Okay. All right, so, so we'll table this?
Well, I'm just one person, but I don't know what the rest of the council feels.
We'll still have a chance to review this once it goes back to planning commission and back up to us.
But you're thinking of visiting more of the land use ordinances, not just chapter 17, is that what you're thinking?
Right, and the other thing of it is that if my memory is correct, I'm not sure all the property was conceived or noted as commercial, but only certain depth of the property, because there was a mobile home there. I'm not sure that all the property is incorporated in commercial. I don't know that for a fact. I'm just going on memory.
Looking at the zoning map over there, it looks like the whole thing is commercial. The back part of this lot too.
I mean, we're finding out that maps aren't right, that roads aren't dedicated, and we're making assumptions on things, and we're not totally organized on it and making decisions because someone came in and started a business without coming through the proper routes. And so we're just supposed to jump and make decisions, and yet then we spend months and months on grapevine and other things, denying things, but we're willing just to roll over on something we don't even have any details on. So I'm not gonna lower my standards.
No, that's not what I was suggesting, Frank. I was suggesting this would give us, if we send it back to planning commission and let them do a little more homework on it, that would give us a chance to do our own research and our own homework, and revisit this again in 2 weeks. At that time, we may have a solution. If not, then we'll be taking it until we.
Well, we've already got a recommendation from the planning commission. I don't know that it needs to go back to the planning commission at this point, does it?
Okay, what I'm asking for is that I don't feel that even though planning commission has ruled that it actually covers the whole thing. And I think that we need to look at our commercial district, chapter 17 of the ordinance, and do some work on it.
I agree with that.
Because I spent a lot of time poring over this, and several other people have too. And there's things that are ambiguous. And there's things that are confining, not allowing. I mean, under the permitted uses is motorboats, new and used, sales and service. That can be pretty messy too. So I would like to see some of this addressed and defined.
Define our ordinances. What do you got, Peter?
We were unaware of the paving, the paving parking. You know, if that's one of our ordinances, then that's in the ordinances, but we were unaware of that. The other thing you have to consider, and I know you guys are all smart enough to consider this, is the applicant came before us with Chapter 17 as it is today. He didn't come before us as it may be in the future. And if you send it to the planning commission and we make those specific changes that you ask for, and we're willing to do that, it won't pertain to this particular situation. So just,
Is that actually accurate? Because he's actually been operating without a business license up until this point.
that's a good point. That's a good point. 'Cause, you know, because we told him, you know, he needs appropriate licenses, he needs a state license, he needs his town license.
And he's
You know.
willing to wait.
So,
That's
so,
what he said.
so there's no reason, I don't think there's any reason that we can't
But if you have your
adjust our
ordinances,
ordinances, because he's been operating illegally for, quite some time now.
that you guys get to do the management decision, you know, all we can do is recommend.
Peter, can I ask a question? I missed the last meeting, that was on the 17th.
Well, it's exciting.
Did he come on that, was he on that meeting?
He came here and he spoke for a little while.
Okay.
We spoke to him.
On the 4th, I think, he came, I don't know if he was on the agenda, but he came out towards the end of the meeting and we planning to push that discussion. I know at that time, we were looking at it as a
Conditional use, yeah.
So
We
then
were,
it
we
came-
were considering, you know, we recommended to him, you know, to proceed with conditional use and found that that was incorrect.
So then he came back and said, I'm not gonna.
He came back, but we found it was incorrect and chose to,
You wanted to do a sales lot.
yeah, do it the way I explained.
I'd just like to make another comment.
Mhm.
We have the Board of Adjustments, we have a process that we put in place where people are able to come in and ask for a license, and then if they don't meet our standards, then they do a conditional use permit. And then they pay a fee, and then we decide on that. What we're doing here is we're trying to adjust something for someone who didn't follow procedure as if we're obligated to, yet we made everybody else pay fortune of dollars to come through and ask for exceptions, and we're going totally against it. So I think it's really unfair to the people that we denied to have businesses because they didn't meet certain criteria. We voted it down, and then we're just gonna bend the rules to jump around that somebody didn't follow. And I think it's just unfair. Because it's unfair to the people in the town that we have denied because they didn't meet certain criteria and they paid the money forward. And then we're gonna have somebody come in and want us to jump all over these hoops and drop everything we're doing because they knew well enough they had to have a business. Why are they picking on small towns? Why do people come out in areas? Because they can't get it done in the bigger cities and have agreements, so they're gonna move something out to the other areas. It's no different than what happened in Hurricane with the helicopter and other things. So, I mean, we ought to follow procedure, and if this particular land ordinance needs to be changed, we need to work on it. But it's not because of this gentleman. We need to look at all of them, we need to adjust. I mean, like I said before, we're not enforcing our ordinance now. So I just, so it bugs me.
If I could comment, I think it's important as a council, as we discuss items on a twice-a-month basis, that when we finish a discussion like this, we're reaching a point of deciding who's going to do what by when in order for us to move this forward. I am not suggesting when I speak in support of having the Planning Commission look at Chapter 17 that I'm asking them to modify it in order to allow something to happen. I think there are sections that the Planning Commission initially looked at, that I've read through, that do seem to have some ambiguity in them. And at a minimum, I would just like it to be that the Planning Commission looks at Chapter 17, sees if there is some ambiguity, if the intent is really there from a repair standpoint, that you need to be doing repairs in order to do temporary storage up to 6 months. There are words in the English language that can make that clear. It's ambiguous right now. So I'm in favor this evening of suggesting that the Planning Commission does look to Chapter 17, to look through it and see if there are any ambiguities that need to be addressed. But I'm not asking them to try to have it that we're jumping through hoops in order to, and it's agreeing with you, Frank, that it's not trying to modify it to make it fit this applicant's request. But it is because of this applicant that we are seeing there is some ambiguity in Chapter 17 and it would do we would do ourselves a favor going forward to have a cleaner reading Chapter 17, so we can apply it equally to any applicant that comes to this town looking for a business license, looking for a conditional use permit, looking to set up their business, that the rules are there and they can be followed, and if they don't permit it, they don't permit it.
And at this point, he has been denied. So, I mean, he doesn't have a business license.
Right.
We have not issued one.
And
They're
and
willing
what,
to,
and
because,
what Wayne has said, I don't oppose. What I oppose is that we have it as an action item, and therefore we send the wrong message to the community that we have reacted to the issue specific to the applicant, that we're modifying this. And does the council have to vote to say to the planning committee that they can go and look at things and make recommendations to us? So I don't know that we have to make a motion. I mean, that's why we have a planning committee, to say that we have a problem, we need to look at things and make recommendations to us, look at what other cities are doing. But I don't want to get the wrong impression that we've told the planning commission now that we want you to change this. They may go back and say, there's a couple things that need to tweak, or town's doing this, and come back. But I don't think we should vote unless that's something that we have to do to tell the commission.
okay. And I think a motion could be framed to state.
But do
what
we have
really
to have a
want.
motion to ask them to do something?
I don't know.
I don't think we do.
I don't know that you need a motion
Yeah.
for it, if you simply request that the record stand that you're requesting the planning commission to take a look at this.
I guess my thought would be is if Wayne said, hey, I see something as a problem, he could say to the planning commission, when you guys are meeting, you might look at something. And it doesn't mean that they have to come and make recommendations, but they can look and give an interpretation. I mean, I think that's the dialogue. So,
And I would agree, I don't think the planning commission needs the council to ask them to look at something. I think they're empowered as a body to make
do it.
recommendations to us without the council asking them to do so.
And I think we're setting a bad precedence here, and that means we're wagging the.
But you know, let me just say, you're right, you're absolutely right, the planning commission can initiate something on their own, but it's also appropriate, I see it all the time, where the council will say, hey, planning commission, this is an issue that's coming for us, would you please study it, look at it? So that two-way dialogue is very appropriate.
Right, but I don't think we need to have a motion and a vote here. I think it's a dialogue, and the message, I think, has been delivered, and look forward to hearing back from the planning commission is my personal view.
Okay. And I'd just like to comment and thank the planning commission that spent the time to look at this. So, I mean, I do have my hobby horses, and and so I'm very open about that. So, thank you for those that listened, and if you don't like what I said, I just have to say I said it.
Yeah.
Will you put it on next week's agenda, discussion item, please?
And what I felt like, because I had sat through the planning commission meeting, was that I didn't feel like they were taking the whole picture under consideration. And so that's why I felt like I needed to let them know that they need to really look at this again, because I don't think, as it stands, that we can issue a business license
Right.
for the purposes he has immediately. Okay. At this point, I had promised Steve Lewis that when he showed up, I would let him go ahead and make his presentation. Is that all right if we hold E and go into discussion item briefly on the ambulance update in C?
I'm fine with that.
Steve?
While he is coming, could I ask a favor? Could everybody speak, especially Frank,
Okay.
into your,
Okay, sorry.
it would help old people
How's
hear
that?
better.
Is that better? Can you hear me now? No, you can't hear me?
Speak up, Frank.
Okay.
Project yourself.
Okay.
I don't really have a presentation, Mayor. Looks like the topic that you're concerned about is ambulance update. assume that's regarding to DC Ambulance going out of business.
Well,
So if you have questions, I'm very happy to answer anything. Okay.
maybe you could give an overview of what the ambulance service is for our community at this point, and how we interface with some of the other areas of Washington County.
Okay, sure. As far as our own ambulance transport from the fire district, nothing has changed at all. No services. We still respond to pages, and we still transport people to the hospital if they need to go. So there hasn't been any change whatsoever. We're independent of DC Ambulance. Have been since 2001. That said, our ambulance service is what they call an intermediate transporting agency. So that means that if we have a patient meets certain criteria for advanced life support that's beyond our scope of practice, then we have had Dixie paramedics. They held the licensure over Leeds up to mile marker 27. And then Hurricane covered it with their paramedic service. So that change is simply that Hurricane paramedics now cover from exit 16 north. So now we only interface with Hurricane paramedics in the event that we need their services. So that's changed a little bit, but as far as just transport, we have not had any change in our district.
Okay, so Leeds area ambulance service serves the interstate from mile 16 to 27.
To mile marker 36, exit 36. Technically exit 16 to exit 36. All incorporated, Leeds town and county. So obviously not Hurricane City, not Washington City, not Tokerville City. Unincorporated lands, and then of course our incorporated city.
And 16 is where Harrisburg is, which is Hurricane. So from that point on north, because it's unincorporated county land.
Exit 6, Highway 9.
60 is
Yeah.
Hurricane exit.
Hurricane exit 16, SR9 junction, from there north. All private land in the freeway. There's not much private land down there, it's interstate, yeah. So pretty much interstate till it gets up to the bottom of town when it turns into some county lands.
So the Hurricane paramedics will be providing you that level of service, not go across. And
That's correct, yeah. We had a meeting, well, I had lots of them, but last week, when it became finalized, all boundaries were, in the entire county were redistributed in the absence of Dixie Ambulance. But as far as transport, nothing changed for Leeds.
so,
Could I ask one question?
sure.
Has Hurricane adjusted their level of advanced transport, or are you comfortable at just basis history that they're not going to have any difficulties responding should the call come up?
There's no concern whatsoever.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, appreciate that. We've actually interfaced with them for a long time. We have a good working relationship.
So how does that play out if you have a paramedic level emergency, say here in Leeds? Do you have to wait until the paramedics arrive at the scene and go with you?
No, if it's an immediate need for transport, then we load and start, and then we just play rendezvous. So if they need us at exit 16, we stop, they jump on, we continue. So no, we don't delay transport. If they can't catch up, then that's what happens too.
Okay.
If it's really bad, we can bring in life flight. So I mean, we have lots of options.
Who pays for the person being picked up, that you pick up? Another resident of your service area?
Everybody that gets a transport to Dixie Regional with Leeds Ambulance is billed.
Do you know what your percentage of collection rate is?
In 2012, it was about 70%.
Is that high or low?
Um,
Or average? Maybe I should give you three choices.
You know, I mean, I don't study the other agencies real hard, but I believe that an average is about 60%. Because of the interstate and automobile insurance, we fare just a little bit better than the average. And we also don't have, we have some Medicare, Medicaid patients, yes, but probably again not the same in comparison to a bigger city, because that makes a substantial
So
impact.
that keeps you pretty solid with your operational base then?
Yeah, there's no concern financially. We don't see
That's
see
great.
any real impact at all that way.
Is it $500 or do you charge more than that
For what?
to the hospital?
Let me preface that with saying that the rates are regulated by the state of Utah. We don't get to just do whatever we want. So based on that, I would say an average transport, I mean, it depends, there's basic life support, what we call ILS, or intermediate life support, and then there's paramedic, so it's not the same fee every single time. And of course, material would factor in, and mileage is factored in, but I would say an average medical transport in the Leeds area is probably between $1,000 and $1,300.
Wow.
Thank you. Yeah, it's nice.
So we have a pretty big stretch of the interstate that we cover. I understand that there are some federal funds that could be drawn on to maybe make up some of the slack on that 30% that aren't collected.
If you could find those, let me know later. I'd like to know. I don't know of anybody that's compensating the same thing. We do, obviously, are very aggressive in getting grants, which come from federal, state, county. But those are grants. It's not the same thing as somebody patting you on the back and giving you money. I don't know where that is. I love it. If I could find that. I'm not aware of any federal subsidy. at all.
So, thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so back to action items.
Excuse me, Bob.
Yes.
You want me to go over these tailings reports that I got for example real quick before Bob leaves, in case there's any questions? With uranium out there.
Okay, could we go ahead and just do E? I think that's gonna be a quick vote,
Yeah, and that's gonna be equipment.
and then we'll be out of the action items.
And there may not be any questions, that's one thing I would speak.
Okay, item E is the confirmation of town council appointees for the Grapevine Wash mediation, which is scheduled for May 10th. We have a resolution here. There's a resolution approving and appointing the town's participation in mediation and settlement negotiations before the Office of the Property Rights Ombudsman regarding the Grapevine Wash Final Development Agreement. In the recitals, it says, whereas the town of Leeds has determined that it is in the best interest of the town to participate in mediation and settlement negotiations scheduled for May 10th, 2013, with the parties that we know as Grapevine Wash. And that will be before Brent Bateman, who is with the Office of the Property Rights Ombudsman. And whereas the mediation is intended as a good faith effort to resolve the developer's issues with conditions placed on the mixed-use development project within the town known as Grapevine Wash, and the developers have filed a petition for judicial review seeking relief with the 5th Judicial District Court in Fort Washington County, state of Utah, asking that the court negate conditions placed on the project by a final development agreement as approved by the town. Whereas the town council held an executive session to discuss the parameters of an acceptable settlement and impart authority to enter a settlement agreement on behalf of the town, should the town and developers come to a settlement. So, in other words, authorizing mediation and granting authority for appointed members of the town council to settle on behalf of the town. The resolution. May it now be resolved that the town council authorizes and directs the following members of the town council. That would be Angela Rohr, myself, Wayne Peterson, and Frank Loico as the mediation representatives to participate in the resolution, the mediation as set forth above. Be it further resolved that as a part of the mediation, the town council authorizes and directs these mediation representatives to negotiate settlement terms and execute on behalf of the town council a binding written settlement agreement if one can be reached within the parameters discussed and authorized in the executive session held on the date set below, which is today. Further resolved that the mediation representatives are authorized to negotiate settlement terms that are outside of the parameters discussed and authorized in the executive session held on today's date. But that before a binding settlement agreement is executed for something outside those parameters, the mediation representatives must seek approval and consent of the town council as indicated in a majority vote of the said council conducted at the next regularly scheduled town council meeting or earlier if a properly noticed special town council meeting is convened. So that is the resolution.
So moved.
Okay, so,
You have a second, and then let's
a
discuss.
second?
Second.
Have
Is
we
there-
already adopted this resolution?
Yes, but at that point, when we did that similarly, we had only 2 representatives. And then informally, we've added more, and it was time to make it official.
So is the proper way to do it to amend that previous resolution or to adopt a new resolution? Does it matter?
Probably doesn't matter.
Okay.
I guess in our motion to modify this supersedes past one.
That's the way, there you go.
Good point.
So moved to modify the previous resolution on the subject matter.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Okay, moving on to discussion items. We will, to allow Bob Nicholson to leave early, we will first take B, Silver Point wastewater with Maitland.
Well, the major concern out there was the uranium tailings out there. And I met with Rodney, who represents the group that lives out there. Met with Rick Sant and his engineer. As far as the tailings are concerned, the state's going to be involved in that. What they're going to do is dig a big hole, clay line it. It's quite a process they're going to do. The state's going to be overseeing all uranium tailings, any movement of uranium. And so I just want to put everybody's mind at ease. And this probably won't happen for a while, but I just want to bring it up to this point. As far as the wastewater is concerned, now what they're going to do is pretty much on phase 1, 22 connections. They're going to do pretty well a 22 or a glorified septic system to handle the 22 lot residential. And then same with phase 2 with the 20 connections. And when they get to phase 3, then they're going to go into their own sewer treatment plant if there's no sewer available at this point. If you look at, you don't need to look at the map, but what they're going to do is they're going to run a pump station. They're going to gravity flow everything to the wastewater facility, which is on the south end of their property. And then they're going to run a pump station back up where there's a manhole where it meets Silver Reef. So when sewer comes through, then that'll be all gravity fed to there.
So they're gonna have a pump station in the interim, and who's responsible? You have an HOA that's gonna be responsible for the maintenance of that? or-
They are, and like I said, this is extremely preliminary, but it's something that Rick and I walked, we spent a whole afternoon out there, meeting with engineers, like I said, now with Rodney, who represents that group on uranium. And the uranium was a big concern to everybody, so I just wanted to bring that up. And I've got a full report from Local Engineering regarding the septic systems. And I went through that with the engineer. You want to copy that?
Well, you know, the state health, the health department has to approve that.
Yeah,
So if they're good with it, then that's the main concern.
yeah.
Is this a state-approved mechanism that they're going with?
Yeah, it is. And there's gonna be some different programs they're gonna offer. They don't know at this point. When they start selling lots, and the city's gonna have to maintain that septic system, because one of their proposals is, when they start selling lots, they're gonna charge the homeowner association will charge each owner a membership fee that will cover the city's cost to oversee that septic system until we get the sewer system through there. So,
Do you have anything, everybody else in town is just on kind of their own system, but
yeah, everybody's on that system. So, their hope is to get sewer eventually, but,
Good report.
so, I just wanted to clarify what they were taking, what most of the places are there when they're in the future.
Good report.
Any other questions on the wastewater at this point? So they will be forming an HOA to accept the fees from the lots that.
That'll be brought forth when they come in with a preliminary plan, how that all take place. And we'll have to pay costs and so on, so.
So this means then that the town will have to hire somebody to maintain the facility?
No, it's my understanding that it has to be checked every 30 days, is that correct, Bob?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I believe so, I believe that's what the engineer spoke of, it has to be checked every 30 days. So,
So it's not like we would have to form a whole new department?
no, it'd be just one of our employees, they just lift a manhole and make sure everything's flowing. So,
All right, thank you, Bob.
Okay.
thanks, Bob.
Okay, so, item A, under discussion, LDWA conversion of a water tank to office space. Peter, you ready?
Okay, I'm Peter Orgella, and I'm no longer a planning commissioner, I'm now an LDWA board member. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
No, it's okay.
Okay,
I didn't know that.
You're not on planning commission anymore.
excuse me?
You're not on planning commission anymore.
Not right now. I'm speaking,
You're just
I'm not
changing
speaking as a
hats,
planning
okay.
commissioner.
Yeah.
Oh, I
he's
got
wearing
you.
a
I
different
thought you
The,
just, okay,
the-
that was confusing me.
Yeah, I was
Well,
lost
I'm
there
not
too.
representing the LDWA, I'm not representing
The way you
planning
said it, you
commission.
were the planning commission person. where you're all-
Yes, and right now, I'm not a planning commission member. When I sit down again, I'll be both. But,
So right now, you're just a private citizen?
no, I'm representing the LDWA, where you get your water.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
We presently have a water tank on Silver Ridge Road, a concrete water tank. And I've been investigating, and history on it. And Angie told me that maybe I should talk to Susan Savage, and I finally did. The tank, I'll give you a little history. The tank is, we believe, was built in the early 70s, so we're looking at 40 years old. The property that it sits on is zoned residential. The LDWA wants to make this structure, its new home office and meeting hall. And
Operations Center.
Operations Center, and secured storage. In this day and age, you leave a fire hydrant sitting out, somebody's gonna take it down and recycle it for you. And we don't, at that expense, we can't afford to do that, so we need to keep everything inside. So we've submitted plans, the LDWA submitted plans, and this is an incomplete version. I've asked the person that's doing this to put a location in here of where Silver Reef Road is, which it runs here. And on the final version, there'll be the road here, and also parking, available parking. And there's structural plans, layouts, windows, doors, and our office complex and meeting hall right now can be, it doesn't have to be in any particular direction. In other words, we can rotate the whole thing. So, you know, meaning that we can put our meeting hall on the south side of the building and our bathrooms and offices on the north side or east or whatever. We can just turn it. It's immaterial, it's a round tank. The tank is,
What, 40 feet diameter and 40
yeah,
feet height?
it's about, yeah, it's 40 feet diameter. It's over 20 feet tall. It's made of reinforced concrete, 10 inches on the walls, and we were just gonna build inside it. So we're gonna put a floor in, you know, about 10 foot above the existing concrete floor, and I think the concrete floor right now is, I think there's 18 to 24 inches of reinforced concrete because of the weight of the water. We've been going over the land use ordinances and which ones pertain and which ones could we come before you and ask you. Since the tank is 40 years old and the land is zoned residential, we believe that the tank came before the residential zone designation was added to the property. And in doing that, under Chapter 5, the non-conforming building and uses are what we're looking at. Under 5.2, repairs and structural alterations may be made to a non-conforming building or building housing a non-conforming use. The LDWA is a nonprofit utility, and we pay no taxes on the property because of that reason. So what we're looking for is I'm just introducing this to you. We'll be looking for a building permit in the near future. And we also have, under 5.4, alterations where parking is insufficient. And it says here, a building or structure lacking sufficient automobile parking spaces in connection wherewith, as required by the ordinance, may be altered to provide additional automobile parking spaces for, after recommendation by the planning commission, approval by the town council. That's pretty much, well, the non-conforming use, you know, we have a water tank on residential property. So it's been non-conforming for either the whole time it's been there, or it's been conforming when it was farmland or ranch land or grazing land or whatever it was, and then the residential zone came into existence after. So we believe that we can grandfather in to this chapter 5. I can't think of anything else to tell you, unless you'd like some questions.
Peter, I have a couple. So how many acres does the tank sit on?
1.1?
It, on the map, it says an acre and a half, but on the, what do you call this? Yeah, the tax ID thing, it's a 1.26. It's 1.26 acres, exempt acres.
Now, another question. So was a building permit acquired when it was turned into a garage storage when the tank was modified?
Yeah, the property was used as storage to begin with. It's always been, you know, when the tank was not being filled with water any longer,
Even before that?
It's always been, there's been a mobile home there. It's always been, you know, used as storage land for the LDWA for piping and stuff.
But I mean, just.
We chose, well, we're not really doing business, we're just continuing the storage.
Right.
So that's why we cut a hole in it and said, you know, we could do secure storage inside.
But I'm not arguing, I'm just asking a question.
No, we did not pull a building permit to cut a hole in it to use it as storage. But any further, well, to get,
You didn't do any electric or water?
no, well, there's always been water in there because there's been a big pipe that fills the tank.
But no plumbing?
No, there's no plumbing, there's no electrical. At our last meeting, we approved an expenditure that's gonna cost us $16,000 just to get power to it. We have to run 100 feet of line and and we have to pay for a transformer. The power company wants $13,000 for the job. We figured, you know, another $3 for us to dig the hole, for us to put the conduit in, you know, get a meter box and do all those things. And they run the line and they hook up, you know, they'll hook up to the transformer and run it to the meter box. And it's our responsibility after that. But we're not gonna do any of that. We're not gonna put a septic system in until everything's approved. So, you know, we would like to start. And but there's things we need to do before we.
Is there a possibility of acquiring more acreage? Because I'm just thinking about the number of cars that you have come to a meeting, how you would get parking.
Well, the parking there now is greater than the parking that the town hall has. And when you see the way, you know, we're gonna put parking all along the bottom and it's gonna ramp up and around to the north side of the tank. There's gonna be way more parking, you know, and there'll be a handicap entrance up top, you know, on the north side, on the uphill side of the tank. Yeah, we're just looking to introduce this to you, and we will be coming at you for a building permit or some recommendations if you agree with the if you agree with the non-conforming use on chapter 5, or not.
So if I understand what you said earlier, so you have a tank, and you're gonna have a lower level of storage, and then you're gonna build, because it's 20 feet tall, you're gonna put a floor.
We're gonna put a floor in.
So you,
We're gonna put utilities in. We're gonna put a bathroom in. We're gonna put, you know,
so what
offices.
was the total square foot to finish up? Because what did you say it was 40? What?
40 diameter, so.
40-foot diameter.
Height.
I haven't figured out, you know, is it pi r squared or something?
Yeah, pi r squared.
Yeah, that'll figure out the floor surface area.
Very
Yeah.
flyers for it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I figured it out once, but I don't remember what it was. But that's what the ODW is looking to do with the future. I mean, we're renting, you know, we're paying a rent of, almost $5,000 a year.
Yeah.
And we're looking for the future, and this is not gonna be something we're gonna be able to build, overnight.
Right.
You know, this is something, you know, if we have 16,000, we can put the electrical in, you know, and then maybe, you know, 6 months, a year down the road, then we can put the septic in, you know, but, we're looking for the town's approval. Thank you. Any other questions?
And just on the theme of who's gonna do what by when with regard to this, is this intended to go to the planning commission first, and you're just giving us a heads up and?
I am the planning commission.
No.
No, you're not. You said you were.
You're not, you're LDWA right now. Now, when you sit down, you're in the planning commission.
1260.
You caught me on that one. See, everybody's correcting me. Danielle is also on the LDWA board, and so we are the planning commission. So we've been mulling this over and working on this for quite a few months now. And you know, we considered rezoning, and you know, and me being angry with the mixed use ordinance and the way it's worded. My recommendation was to come before you and ask you for zone change to mixed use, and to put, to build this and build apartments on the rest of the property, and maybe a McDonald's or something. But cooler heads reside, and I calmed down a little bit, and we chose to approach this in a more calm manner, and so that's where we are now. But you will be seeing the mixed-use ordinance coming at you shortly. Any other questions?
To the extent it's going to be coming to town council, if I could just request whatever chapters you think are going to be appropriate, if you could highlight those in advance so that we would have time to read them and be well-versed in them before we're having any deliberation up here, I think would
Well,
be beneficial.
again, chapter 5 is what we're considering. Under the commercial, we're not an accepted use under the commercial use. You know, there's no, on the list, there's no,
Wouldn't it fall under professional offices?
no,
No?
we're public, we're a privately owned public utility. So the town owns the LDWA. I mean, the citizens of the town own the LDWA. And we operate under a nonprofit.
How does LDWA operate in the Rice Bank building?
Very well, thank you.
Well, I mean, because what zone is that there?
We just rent the office space.
That's under that's
The
property.
We were,
But it's
Joe,
in the town of Leeds.
we were asked, we used to operate under that office, and we were asked to vacate. We had, I don't know, a week or something, we were asked to vacate on a past administration. And we left, and we had to have office space, you know,
I think
Yeah.
it's great to make use of the Rice Bank, to make use of this water tank. I'm just curious if it's conforming at the Rice Bank, why wouldn't it conform?
Well, that land was owned it's owned by the county.
It's owned by the county,
But-
but it's
But
with,
those things were already preset before Silver Reef was incorporated into town. The uses of those buildings that are grandfathered in, they were set for commercial.
So would this be considered grandfathered in, even though they're making improvements to it?
that's
You
what,
just have to look and see.
that's what I'm contending, that we grandfather in before the residential zone was put on the property. And the best I can do for the date on the structure was Susan Savage, who recommended we speak to Don Goddard, but we had no record at the LDWA on any of our records of the age of that structure. So it was said at some place in the history somewhere, in the history, that it may have been built in the 30s, but I wasn't going to bring that up because we don't know if that was actually used as a silt filtering thing for the water for Main Street or not, or whether there was some sort of pit or, of a pond or whatever, so, so the silt could, yeah, so I mean, so that's what we'd like to do in the future, and you'll be getting more information. Okay, any other questions? Okay. Now, back to being a planning commissioner. Okay? Reversing roles, if I may. Angela, we had a public hearing, and we motioned some changes on the sign ordinance and on the conditional use ordinance at our last meeting, and approved those changes to be sent to the town council. And I'd like to know why they're not on your tonight's agenda.
Well, because we ran out of paper.
No, there's a whole second page there with nothing on it.
Was it submitted to you to be put on
Yeah,
our,
they haven't been rewritten.
Thank you.
so
We'll
You
have to take care of that.
you rewritten them, or?
They've been rewritten, they've been public hearing, and they've been approved. The changes have been approved for the for your reviewing. And there's going to be more. There's going to be the master road plan. There's going to be the mixed use ordinance. These are all, we have public hearings on them next week. So these are all issues that the Planning Commission have been struggling with for a year and a half to 2 years now. And we're trying to process them, and I just wondered why there was no action, no discussion on your part on these items.
So we need them presented to you to make them available to us.
Yes.
Well, they were.
That's where we're at.
They were.
No, they weren't made available to them.
They were made available to you
Yeah.
for the next meeting. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm just concerned because, things don't get done in this town in a timely manner. And, the Planning Commission is trying to move things along. And, sitting on these things for a year and a half is just ridiculous. A year and a half or more. And, we're trying to process them in a timely manner. And that's why we're working overtime on these issues to present them and get the problems worked out for your viewing.
So, do you have them in your possession?
No, I don't have any.
Okay, so we need to get them.
Bob, you do have them in your possession. We gave them to you the last
Yeah,
meeting.
but the
Daniel
changes
wrote them
haven't
all.
been written in.
The what?
The changes where you changed the language on these.
That's the sheet that Danielle gave you.
Yeah, the sheet. But she didn't change the actual ordinances. That sheet she wrote you, item by item, were all the changes in the way that was supposed to be done and what was supposed to be deleted. And the wording was even on there. Well, I thought
And
the sheet-
that's, I believe that's your job to do, to make those changes and present them to the town council.
Well, I thought the sheet that I got, or that she gave me, was for the one we're presenting next week at your meeting.
Well, I'll have to come
I'll
tomorrow.
have to check into it.
I'll have to come tomorrow, and we'll have to.
That's why I
we'll
asked
have
you to come
dis-
in tomorrow.
We'll discuss it.
Go over that sheet.
Okay.
I made a specific request
Okay,
for you to come in tomorrow.
okay.
and clarify the language.
Hey, Peter, we really do appreciate you guys doubling up twice a month and getting some of this fixed and worked out.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for hearing me out.
Thanks, Peter.
Okay, then, item E, the Tree City USA, this is just very briefly. Dannon came back in again. He's the Forest Service guy that, pushes Tree City USA. And in order to qualify for a grant, for next year, we would have to have all of our paperwork in before December 1st. And that would include having a tree board, which could consist of, say, one council person, Antonio, who already does a lot of the tree work, and Denise Allen, who says that she's going to work with this, and open it up to maybe one or two other individuals who would like to participate. So a tree board, have a Arbor Day observance and planting some trees. These are the basic things that would need to happen so that we could document it and submit it by December 1st. So we do have some time. We wouldn't want to be planting trees until maybe September at this point.
How many trees do we need to plant initially to get started?
I don't think it's very many, like 2 or something.
Oh,
Angie, I'm going to be putting in about 100 on my property line. Is that going to help you?
we
Yeah,
have to
I
be on
think it
city
has-
property.
I think it has to be on,
City property.
yeah.
Just plant them on the other side of the fence.
No, wrong side.
Wrong side.
And then there is the aspect of the $2 per capita, which Dan keeps explaining could be met mostly by what we pay Antonio and Brian to care for, and it could come out of what we pay to water the trees that we do, our existing trees, and the people's time who serve on the board, so there's a variety of things. He doesn't feel like that 1650 dues, so to speak, would really need to come out of the town budget, that most of it could be met by
So is that something,
in kind.
is that something that we need to start keeping track of now, the amount of time we're spending on trees? If we're gonna allot that 1650?
I think it comes after you start it.
I think it does too. I think I asked him that
So we
specifically,
have to
and it
let the
would be,
1650 to begin.
no, that we would start documenting our
Okay,
usage.
after that, okay.
Because I wondered were we gonna have to come up with that right when we put the application in, and I believe the answer was that, was no, but I will double check on that one. Okay, any other questions? Yes.
No, I just suggest that we move that to an action item for our next meeting.
Okay,
Second,
Let's not keep
Because we
beating
do-
this dead horse.
yeah.
we do have to make a resolution.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll make a resolution for Tree City. Okay, citizen comments, did anybody sign up? Alan?
I did.
All right.
Alan Roberts. I'd like to just make a small comment on the business license application. Ordinance 2008-08 specifies and shows the process for dealing with business licensing. In that ordinance, it specifically talks about the town planner. There's another ordinance that reverted those duties back to the administrator or the mayor once the town planner that we had was no longer a position that was available. Those business licenses need to come through the administrative part, not start at a planning commission level. They need to be determined by the administrative level on whether does this need a conditional use or not. And then that individual passes it on to the planning commission. Now, it's very clear on how that process works. But the application has to be filled out. So you have in black and white exactly what the applicant is desiring to do. And that's what you have to start with. I know that wasn't the case with Larry. And I'm not picking on Larry. I think government should stay as much as possible out of people's land use. However, I think it's their responsibility to help protect the safety and welfare of the public. The other issue that I would like to make a statement on, I had talked with LDWA when I was in a mayor position on that property needing to be rezoned. Joe makes a good point. They're wanting to do an office there. I can tell you that utilities, any type of structures that are used for the utilities do not fall under the zoning of wherever they're at. The piping can run through wherever. A tank can live in residential areas. Doesn't matter how long it's been there, it doesn't matter. A substation could live in a residential area. Those type of things are exempt from whatever the zone is for utility portions that are used for the utilities. They're changing the use of that. It's no longer a tank holding water. It's going to be an office building. It's zoned residential. If we're going to follow the ordinances, let's be very clear. I'm not against the use they want to make and do with it. I think they should be able to do with those properties whatever they want to. If they want it in a different zone, they need to go through that process also. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, staff reports.
I'm just gonna be really brief. This will be on the next town meeting, but I provided you,
Yes.
each of the councils, a list of the projects that we had approved, and the estimated amounts for each of those projects. Due to the time factor, I think just let you look at those. To have Sunrise Engineers do this, it was $20,000, which we don't, I think Nate and I can probably get some of this set up, and have people bring in the bids for certain projects. But we still need to get LDWA and the irrigation company and any other utilities that cut through the roads where the road is dropping down to get those fixed before we go in and do things here structurally, so. But I think we need to look at this and see if there's any concerns. I'm sorry, I'm not talking.
Yep, I could barely hear you. I was just going to comment.
So
So,
if we put it on the agenda, if somebody has something that they feel more pressing, that we want to take one of these off and do something different,
so we should put this on the agenda for May 8th meeting to address the priority of the list, or
that would be fine. I mean, we've approved this before, but I think, what I'm saying is if there's something that has arisen that shows a more severe case of something needing to be done, then we move something off the list or reallocate funds.
okay.
Or we probably
probably have more money, so we could probably add something to this.
Well, the cost, I mean, this is dated 2011, and I know your cost of asphalt, and oil,
Right.
things have gone up,
Right.
so.
And as I said to everybody on this, the thing that's really crucial, if you're pouring a concrete curb on these side streets off of Valley, and you've got to fill in the vacant space with asphalt, you want to have the asphalt being done at the same time you're doing the asphalt up on the speed humps and on the circle drive, so that you don't have trucks come out at the same time. If we're going to chip and seal some of the roads, we need to do them all at the same time for savings. So it's kind of like, even though we may want to move one around, if we may save more money. That's kind of why these were clustered the way they are, too. That makes sense.
So a holdup really is, an initial holdup is the road repairs the irrigation company and LDWA still need to do. Is that,
Right.
okay?
They've got to come to the plate and say, yeah, we did this one and this failed through here, and we've got to get this patched. And if they're doing any more repairs, we don't want to go do a road we're going to dig up. So we held off on some of these too, because they had doing repairs in other places, so.
So do we need to send them a letter about which particular locations?
Well, Mark's been very receptive. He said he'll get with us and show us which ones. So we just need to get that done. Maybe Nate and I can pick a time that we can meet with Mark and get him to identify those.
Just whatever your schedule works, and we'll do that. I do think we need a couple speed bumps on Valley Road.
No, speed bumps and speed humps, so they're both different restrictions, how we can do them. We can do speed humps, but speed
That's fine.
bumps.
Yes.
What about the irrigation company?
Mark said he'd meet with us and tell us which ones are theirs. I mean, oh, you mean irrigation company? Yeah, we'd have to get with, is State Sterling still on there?
I'm sorry, I only heard bits and pieces.
Irrigation company.
Dave Sterling's on the irrigation.
Oh, irrigation, I don't know. We got enough problems with just our water, our personal water.
Is it Brett Thomas?
Just a question though,
Yeah.
have you,
Tom Goddard is the president.
well, during the meetings, but not, I don't know what the hierarchy is at this point. Have you identified some of those spots with Mark already? I know you were gonna meet with him.
Yeah, we talked about a couple of them, but he was gonna go through and let us know which ones were yours and which ones were theirs.
If you can do me a favor, when there's some that comes up like that, if you can run it through the office so Karen has it, it runs a lot smoother. Mark's busy,
Right.
and the priority, the way we set up stuff is usually through Karen, because she has a tendency to be more directed that way. So we'll get things done a lot better, and everybody's in the loop too, but yeah, we'll be happy to.
Because I think the best thing we can do is go in and mark, like if this was a construction company, or if this was irrigation, or LDWA, or if this was repaired by the cable company, or whomever.
Yeah.
Because I don't know who did the cut in the highway up here, because they didn't go through the state on that one. So I don't know if that was irrigation or,
Where?
right up here by, what's the first?
Vista?
Vista, yeah.
You mean the one all the way down to this?
No, right on Main Street, but it's almost in direct perpendicular to Vista.
Yeah, we're pretty careful with.
I think there's probably, that may have been irrigation, because they have a pipe goes under there.
Well, Mark worked there. I mean, there was a leak there during the freeze. And, I don't know if I didn't help him with that, so I don't know firsthand whether he dug up any of the road or not.
If we're real careful about it, obviously we're real careful with that road. And we usually get, if something's done there, we're all aware of it.
Yeah.
I don't remember now.
Has Brett Combs done most of your digging, most of your
No,
trenching?
we do it all in-house,
Do you?
yeah.
LDWA does, what about the irrigation?
That I don't,
maybe Mr. Comus does it, I'm not sure. I know he was doing it for us before at times. But
Nate, you know, he may be a good source, because he could probably remember what.
Yeah, he'll know who dug up what. And the problem is, we're not gonna figure out every one of them.
No.
We might get a handful of them, but we're not gonna be able to figure out every one.
If I could suggest as a next step, that it sounds like there's more work to be done than to be ready to take action in 2 weeks, but that we ask that Nate and Frank report back at the next meeting as to where things stand, with a particular focus on what kind of timetable we might have to get the information we need to be able to move this forward.
Right.
Good, thank you for that.
Okay.
Okay, so at this point, I could ask for adjournment, but we want to go into a closed session to finish discussion at this point.
I move that we go leave the open public meeting of Leeds and move into a closed session to discuss pending litigation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.